Welcome to Libo University and the video tutorial series for the certification of the PAMANA Funeral Expense Benefit. This segment number 4 is titled The Last Will and Testimony by Atwill USA. At the end of this tutorial, you should become familiarized with the history of last wills and testaments. What is a will? Why a will is needed? And what happens without a will? The purpose of this segment is to help you understand the importance of having a last will and testament. Most people should have a will. Wills can distribute property, name an executor, name guardians for children, forgive debts, and a lot more. First, let's take a look at how wills came about. Solon and the ancient Greeks. Throughout history, there have been pivotal individuals responsible for great change and advancement in our society. The development of our current law is no exception. We owe much of our ability to choose how we want our property distributed when we pass to a man named Solon. Let's briefly trace the history of the legal document known as the Last Will and Testament, and let us see how Solon plays a key role in that story. Solon was a reformer statesman in ancient Athens, Greece. He lived before Christ. The law before his time was attributed to another Greek leader named Draco, but that law was exceedingly harsh and severe. Hence, we have a word that we use today called draconian, that is, something that is exceedingly harsh or severe. Solon determined to make the law more moderate. For instance, before his change of the law, a person had to leave his estate exclusively to family members. With Solon's new laws, others could be beneficiaries of a will. As the historian Plutarch reports, Solon thus put every man's estate in the disposal of the possessor. Well, almost so. A man could leave property to others only if he had no sons. If he only had daughters, then those men whom he left his property had to marry his daughters. And then Rome followed Greece. The intent of Roman law was that a man could make his own disposition by his estate through the means of a will. But the prime purpose of inheritance remained the preservation of the family, and family inheritance was strongly favored. The Christian influence. The Judeo-Christian tradition also influenced the law of estates. In Genesis chapter 48, the patriarch Jacob leaves a double portion of his inheritance to the sons of his son Joseph. In early Christianity under the Roman Emperor Constantine, people were expected to always leave a bequest to the state-sanctioned church. Our law primarily derives from Roman, church, and English law. Some vestiges of the Roman influence are evident in the language lawyers use in wills. For example, the term persterpes, meaning that a group of beneficiaries inherit standing in the shoes of and representing a deceased ancestor, usually a deceased parent. When the colonists came to North America, they brought with them the long-entrenched traditions of law, as those traditions had developed in their home country of England. As early as King Canute in the 11th century AD, it was expected that people dying must have made a last will and testament. The English influence. English legal principles included the history of individual protection against tyranny, embodied in the early Magna Carta, from which we get our Bill of Rights. Also implanted on American soil was the splendid right to determine the disposal of one's own possessions of property after one had died. Government could, if the people allowed, dictate how property is to be left to others. The government does in fact have provisions to do this when a person has not made a will. Today, Americans have enjoyed the right and privilege of deciding how to leave their estates since the beginning of the country, and still 63% of Americans die without a will. What is a will? A last will and testament, known only also just as a will, is a legal document that allows a person to control how their estate will be distributed after they pass away. A will also enables a person to appoint a guardian for their minor children, as well as provide instructions and set aside funds for the care of any pets they may have. To maximize the likelihood that wishes are carried out, a will needs to be set forth in writing and signed by the testator. that is the person who has made the will, before witnesses. If the will does not meet these standards, the testator's instructions may not be carried out. The varieties of wills include the following. Self-proving or testamentary will. A self-proving will, also known as a testamentary will, is the traditional type of will with which most people are familiar. It is a formally prepared document that is signed in the presence of witnesses. A holographic will. Holographic wills are written without the presence of witnesses. However, they are rarely held up in court. Oral will. Oral wills are spoken testaments given before witnesses. They are not widely recognized from a legal perspective. Living will. A living will has nothing to do with the distribution of assets, but rather sets forth wishes for medical care in terms of life support should the testator be incapacitated. Most people use a will to leave instructions about what should happen to their property after they die. However, you can also use a will to name guardians for children and their property, name an executor, leave property to those chosen, and plan for personal matters. Benefits of owning a will. Wills are not just for the rich and wealthy. Regardless of how much or how little money a person has, a will ensures that whatever personal belongings and assets they have will go to family or to those designated. When owning a business, a will can help ensure smooth legal transition of those assets. Beyond property and personal belongings, if there are minor children, a will is a must. A will ensures the choice of children's legal guardians should the parents pass before their children are of legal adult age. Through a will, one can also name what is known as an executor. The executor is in charge of making sure all wishes are carried out. This should be someone who is willing and able to handle everything that is involved with those closing the estate. Without a will, a court appoints someone to administer the estate, and that person may not be someone the deceased would have chosen. Without a will, a court makes these decisions on the deceased's behalf through a lengthy and often stressful process called a probate. Few people plan to die in the near future, but if a person dies suddenly without a will, they've inadvertently subject their family and loved ones to unnecessary confusion and anxiety at what is already a very difficult time. An additional benefit of having a will is that wills include provisions helping to avoid estate taxes to help minimize state and federal estate taxes. You should always consult with a tax professional to fully understand the tax implications of having a will. But undoubtedly, one of the greatest advantages of having a will is that a person can choose who will receive what from their estate. Without a will, their estate is subject to state laws of intestacy. That means that people they would have liked to benefit may receive little or nothing, while others with whom they may have not been as close to receive the bulk. Accordingly, if a person is not married but has a long-term partner, he or she could receive nothing under such laws. Alternately, if a person is in the process of a divorce but it has not been finalized yet, without a will, their estranged husband or wife could make a claim on that person's estate. Creating a will with Pamana's At Will USA gives sole discretion over the distribution of assets. It lets a person decide how their belongings, such as automobiles and the such, should be distributed. If they have a business or investments, the will can direct the smooth transition of those assets. A will outlines personal wishes, from pet care to funeral arrangements, and dictates what type of services, if any, they would like, among other personal matters. A clearly defined will eliminates confusion and family disagreements during a stressful and emotionally charged time. What happens without a will? If a person does not have a will, they die intestate. In such a case, the state will oversee the distribution of their assets. Contrary to popular opinion, the state does not inherit the assets, but rather distributes them according to a set formula. The formula often results in half of the deceased estate going to their spouse and the other half going to their children. Such a scenario can result in the sale of the family home or other assets, negatively affecting the surviving spouse. This can create financial and emotional difficulties, particularly if their spouse was counting on the bulk of their assets to maintain his or her standard of living. Further complications can arise if their children are minors, as the court will appoint a representative to look after their interests. Tax considerations are another important issue to consider, as a properly prepared will can minimize tax liability. This is particularly important to people with large estates. In the United States, an estate tax return must be filed on estates valued at more than $5,450,000 as of 2016. But no federal estate tax is due if the estate is worth less than that amount. Having a brief understanding of last wills and testaments will help you to convey the importance of having an At-Will USA will for adults of all ages. This fourth segment in the PAMANA certification tutorial series has familiarized you with a brief history of last will and testaments. What is a will? Why are wills needed? And what happens without a will? Thank you for your interest in becoming a certified PAMANA advocate. We hope this brief tutorial was helpful as you grow with us. Please proceed now to the quiz section, and best of luck.